Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the SaaS Marketing Show. Today, I am joined by Ksenia, who is the CEO at Planable. And Planable is a tool that simplifies and speeds up the way social media campaigns are managed. It makes planning, visualizing, and approving social media posts easy and fun. Ksenia, I'm excited to have you here. Welcome to today's show.
Thank you so much, Dylan, for having me on the show. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, no problem. Me too. So today we're going to specifically talk about how Plannable has grown to 7 figures with content marketing and how you went from, and these were your words, not mine too, right? But like small, struggling startup launching on Product Hunt to where you guys are today. And I'm really excited to go deep into this topic because SEO, content marketing is so important to so many SaaS businesses, and it's something that people are always asking us about. But before we do that, let's just talk a little bit about Plannable. So maybe for everyone listening to this, that if they don't know who you guys are, could you give us a quick top level overview as to where Plannable's at as a business and like some of the kind of clients that you work with, et cetera? And yeah, just give everyone listening a quick overview.
Yeah, definitely. So we started the company about 4 years ago. And since then, we've been working with more than 5,000 teams across the world. Most of our customers are based in the US and in the UK, but we've been working with customers from all across Singapore, Australia, all over the world, helping them speed up the way they plan content for social media. We've raised a Series Seed round a year ago, and before that, we've gone through a few accelerators. The most prestigious one that we've went through was Techstars and London. And in terms of trying to position ourselves where we are, we're still very seed level. I consider ourselves still an early stage startup. We have about 700 paying customers at the moment. And some of them, I could name a few of them. We work with the United Nations, we work with Jaguar Land Rover, Christian Louboutin, Viber, and a bunch of very awesome brands out there.
Awesome. That's so cool. And you, before starting Plannable, you were running or working in a marketing agency, right? So is that where the idea came from for Plannable?
Yes. So I had my own social media marketing agency before Plannable, and together with my co-founders, they also worked in the industry. We realized that this entire issue of collaboration and planning content could be improved. We really didn't enjoy working in spreadsheets and back and forth emails. So we started to build a solution for ourselves. And then we realized that we're not the only ones struggling with this, and many others in the industry might enjoy a solution such as this. So yeah, that's how Planable got started.
Awesome. That's always like the best way, right? Like people say, is when you find something solving a problem that you guys had yourselves is always a good way to.
Yeah, scratching your own itch.
Yeah, exactly. And so what does the team look like at Plannable from a marketing perspective? How do you guys have things set up at the moment?
Yeah, so our first marketing person, we hired our first marketing person I think 2.5 years ago, right after we launched on AppSumo. And I'm going to tell you about AppSumo a bit as well. Probably we're going to talk about it. And we've been growing the team. The first marketer that we hired, she became our head of marketing. And now we have a team of 4 people. We're hiring a content marketer as we speak. So yeah, it's still a very small team. We have someone in charge of paid, then we have someone in charge of like the blog and SEO, but we're still as content focused as we were very early in the beginning.
Okay. And so we're going to get into your kind of approach to content, but something that you just said that I want to touch on is the AppSumo thing, because I know that a lot of people listening to this, they always consider, hey, should I do this? Should I not do this? A lot of them get approached about it. My friend Tom Hunt, who runs SaaSmarketer.io, he also has Bcast, which is what we use to host our podcast. I know that he's going through an AppSumo launch like right now. A few of my friends that run like other SaaS companies, I won't mention them because like I know that one of them is a competitor to you guys, but like they've done AppSumo launches. So I don't know how careful we have to be about this depending on your views of it, but like how was the AppSumo launch for you guys? And is that something you did right at the very beginning to kickstart things?
Yeah, that was something we did very early on. And I think that's the best timing to do it, because then you want to, build the brand and you don't want to dilute the brand value and so on. And also that's when you need it the most. You need like a cash injection the most. You need that word of mouth. And so to give you a bit of context, we were a bit desperate when we did AppSumo. We were trying so many things back then and nothing was working. We were trying, like building our blog. We were trying SEO very early on. We were trying all kinds of like growth hacking. And nothing seemed to really work. We were just stagnating in terms of our revenue. We were doing, I don't know, $200 in MRR. So it was very sad. After 2 years of building the product, we couldn't manage to grow it in terms of revenue and in terms of users and customers. So I think AppSumo approached us. I don't remember if we approached them, but I think they reached out to us and they asked, do you want to do it? We researched it a bit. I think we stumbled upon a few articles with, people that were telling their own AppSumo experience, and they were saying that they made like 200K. And I was like, wow, that does not seem real. It's something's fishy with this. It just doesn't seem real. So we didn't really took it seriously, to be honest. We were like, oh, let's see how it goes. So I remember back then I judged companies by their websites. And I remember AppSumo had a very like clunky website. So I had no hopes regarding AppSumo and the results they could bring. But then we launched, and I remember that we were not even on their homepage, and they sent the first email blast. So that was not even the full power of AppSumo. And I remember we had so many users. We had so much, we were doing shifts in terms of customer support to just try and manage this entire flow. We were just completely flooded. And that was amazing. And there's one thing for people that are thinking about AppSumo, one big concern that, yes, I'm giving away this product for this very small amount of money. But one thing that really surprised us during this entire AppSumo experience was the fact that people actually started writing about us, tweeting about us, doing blog reviews about us. So the word of mouth started spreading, and we started getting customers, recurring revenue customers that didn't come from AppSumo long after AppSumo was done. So yeah, I think that was one thing. And also we had some of the AppSumo customers, very few of them, I have to say, but some of them needed something more, and we upgraded them on a recurring plan. But yeah, we got quite a big chunk of money, like a cash injection, almost angel level ticket seed. And yeah, afterwards it also started growing in terms of recurring revenue.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think when people ask me about it, usually I don't necessarily give advice, but I share the experiences I've had from my friends or other people that have been through AppSumo launch. And I think for that kind of stage of the business, like if you see it as almost a seed round in itself, or an initial starting point, then it can be really valuable. But if you're have been building for a while already and you don't need that, my advice is usually to stay away just because of the challenges that come with it. But for that specific use case, it sounds like it worked really well.
There's also the risk of like cannibalizing yourself. If you have customers that are on your subscription, on a smaller subscription, they may choose to go with AppSumo and cancel. So you might see like a huge churn, which you obviously don't. But if you're very early on and you have a product that is stable, also that's super important, because if you're too early on, you might get so much trash talk about yourself on AppSumo and on social media. So you don't want to do that. So you need to be prepared.
Yeah, and it sounds like it worked out well for you guys. So let's talk about content then, because you've mentioned this a few times already. So it sounds like SEO and content marketing is one of the big pillars that drives forward success for you guys by the sound of things. Are the majority of your signups and customers, are they coming through organic channels, or what's the split? Where do most people come from for you guys?
Yeah, so most of people come from SEO. We're doing the right thing in terms of keywords and content and our own blog. And then there's a bunch of them that come from direct. I hate direct. Direct, basically a huge chunk of direct traffic is word of mouth, right? If I tell you about a company and you go and search their brand name directly, that is direct. But obviously you didn't ask yourself, what would a good content planning tool be called? Let's try Plannable. No, obviously someone told you about it or you read about it somewhere. So it's content, really. It's that brand awareness that you build through content. So I think that's the split. I would say SEO and content hand in hand, they're bringing the most traffic to Plannable. We've actually been growing until, I don't know, half a year ago, our entire growth has been sustained by these two things. We haven't invested in paid. We're only now playing around with paid search, display ads, that kind of thing. But most of our growth has been really organic through content and SEO.
Got it. That makes sense. And you have, I know you talked about the kind of team structure a little bit earlier on. So you have like people that are looking after that. Do you use like freelancers for content writing as well, or any agencies, or is everything in-house?
Yeah, so we tried outsourcing the backlink outreach part of the SEO, because that's very time consuming. But at the same time, we haven't really gotten any big results out of the backlinks, and it's super expensive. I hear it's from $200 up. It starts at $200 a backlink, and not every backlink is the same. Not all backlinks are equal. So that's something that you need to take into consideration as well. So we're trying to do that, but I wouldn't say it's like really 100% working. We might try it the other way around. We might outsource the content writing and then do backlink outreach ourselves. So we're still trying to tweak this process. We've been doing it all internally so far, so we've only now started looking into this.
Let's talk about the kind of approach to content then that you guys take. We'll get to like brainstorming and researching and the specifics in a second, but from a content perspective, like what's worked well for you guys and are you doubling down on at the moment? I think that'd be really interesting to talk about.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a bit about a few initiatives that we did. And I'll start with the biggest one. We had one content project that we worked for, I think, more than a year, and that's a video academy. We chose to interview a few experts in the industry about content marketing and how do you build content marketing. What does a process need to look like, the team behind content projects and so on. And we decided to interview other people because we felt that, okay, yes, we do have some knowledge internally, but there's people smarter than us out there. So we decided to interview them and build that content academy together with them. And I think we had about 12 experts. We reached out to them directly, some that we knew from our network, others that was the first project that we worked on with them. And it was, we did everything internally. We did the design, we did the scripts, and it took about a year. It was a huge initiative. And I have to tell you that it wasn't the most successful one. So the results, we had another initiative that took about a few of weeks to build it. It brought us more leads than the Content Academy that, we built for almost a year. And that initiative was an Advent calendar. For those who don't know what Advent calendars are, it's basically, they're usually built around Christmas. And it starts with like December 1st, and every day on that specific website, and every day you open like a new gift or a new resource or something like that. So we built our own Advent calendar, and we had discounts for tools that we partnered with, books, other resources, just like great stuff. And that was one resource, one content initiative, how we call them internally, content initiatives. And that was one content initiative that really took off. And it wasn't that hard to build. So that's one huge lesson that we learned, that probably, even though you want to do like grand stuff, you want to make statements with your content, you should probably, especially very early on when you don't have that much experience, you should probably start small and do smaller things, and then gradually increase the size of the projects that you're building, and not start with something huge because you might not have the experience to build it faster, because and it's also not proven. You don't know if that's going to work. Just start with small stuff, small little projects that you build on, and then eventually you're going to have the knowledge to estimate the results of some specific projects, but also streamline them, build them faster.
And so is that how you approach all of the different, you said like marketing initiatives, special initiatives? Do you approach them on a project by project basis by the sound of things? And if so, like how often, what's the kind of cadence for those? Are you planning like special one-offs once every month, quarter, 6 months? Like how does that look behind the scenes?
So yeah, that's a good question. We recently transitioned to this, I think a year ago, we transitioned to this strategical planning inside our company based on OKRs, objectives and key results. So every quarter we plan our OKRs for the next quarter. We usually try and do at least one special initiative per quarter because we're a tiny team. We're 3-4 people on the team. So we're still trying to make it, we have this ongoing initiatives, like we have our own newsletter, we have paid, we have SEO, we have our own blog, analytics, a bunch of things that we need to do on an ongoing basis. So we managed to sneak in at least one special initiative per quarter, some smaller, some bigger. If we know that we have a huge special initiative like the Content Academy that is going to take half a year or a year, we usually try to just have that one and not add anything else because it's just not doable. But that's how we plan it. And then we have a few, what we call them brand flags. So it's basically things that we stand by, like collaboration and teams and the people behind marketing. We even have a podcast called People of Marketing, where I interview people in the marketing industry about their career and their journey. So we have a few kind of like keywords that we stand by in terms of brand identity and tone of voice. So we try to build content around them. We try to build content more around collaboration rather than social media, because we feel like that space is very saturated with Buffer and Hootsuite and all the other folks that are building content around that. And we're really more about collaboration and the human side of marketing rather than the social media itself. Social media is just a channel. People come to Planable for the planning and collaboration side. So that's how we try to think around it. And you need to like do a bit of look inside yourself as a brand and realize what are those keywords that you want to build content around.
Yeah, and let's talk about that because I'm interested to dive a little bit deeper into that specifically too, because I know that a couple of things that you touched on, like being in what's maybe seen as a pretty competitive space, if you were to double down on like social media marketing and social media content. And it sounds like you've definitely taken a different angle and different perspective there. So like, how do you plan that out? Like, how do you decide, okay, this is this way that we're going to diversify ourselves a little bit from the typical kind of niche specific audience that people might associate us with? And then when it comes to actually producing the pieces of content, whether it's those one-off like initiatives that you talk about, or even just from looking at the Plannable blog, I know that you guys are pretty active with resources and content pieces there too. So I would love to find out what it looks like in the behind the scenes when you're coming up with a new piece of content, a new initiative, a new blog post, and how you go about that. I think that'd be really interesting for people listening.
Yeah, so I think for content initiatives tend to be a bit more brand focused. The things that I mentioned, like collaboration and planning and teamwork, because we get the flexibility to we have the freedom of building them however we want them, because then, we promote them. It's mostly driven by paid. So we're going to make a statement around our own brand. When it comes to blog content, that's a different story. Blog that is not driven by SEO doesn't really exist, or by paid. That's not sustainable, especially for the blog. Maybe paid for product, that's a different thing. But the blog needs to be sustained on the SEO, obviously. So there we go a bit more into what people are looking for, and we use tools like Ahrefs, and we do so much keyword research. We try to find keywords that are relevant to our product and that are maybe not as competitive. Like if you try and do content calendars, you're going to fight with HubSpot and the other ones. And they have thousands of backlinks for that specific keyword, so you can't really find them. But if you find like niche keywords that apply to your own product and that show some intent, because it really doesn't matter if you rank well on a keyword that doesn't have intent. It doesn't, like, for example, I think we're ranking on hiring freelancers or something like that. And it's not relevant for us. It's good for brand awareness and all of that, but it's not really relevant for us because people don't come to Plannable. That would work well for a marketplace, for Upwork or something like that, but not for us. So you need to find those keywords that are not competitive, and also they are relevant to your product, and they might show some intent from the user. So that's how we approach it. Different ways. We do the content initiatives more for the brand, but the blog is very SEO focused.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm interested, maybe this question might be stepping things back a little bit, but I'm interested in finding out what the potential answer is to this, because I know that when we decided to do this episode today, we were going to be talking about how you guys have grown to the point where you're at with content marketing. And one of the things that we said was how you transitioned from this like small struggling startup, as you mentioned, to where you guys are today. So what was did you all of a sudden drastically change your approach to content specifically, or what was the change that I know it's hard to like sometimes set down on one specific thing, hey, this is what changed, but was there something to do with the way that you guys approach content that you've switched up a little bit? Or I'm interested to find that out.
I think in the beginning we tried doing blog and SEO, and we did it very superficially. We knew even back then that this is a long-term game, SEO and blog and content. But I think we didn't have the patience to wait for those results. So we switched to more growth hacking type of things, forums, communities, that kind of stuff. And I wish that we've done that in parallel with the blog and the SEO, because we might have had results earlier than that. And I think what changed was that we came back to the blog and we really took it very seriously, and we took content marketing very seriously, and we had this faith that it's actually going to work, though it wasn't working very early in the beginning. We were obviously bringing traffic to the blog, but it wasn't converting. It wasn't bringing signups or anything like that. So we still worked on it and we still invested in it with this faith that sometimes eventually it is going to pay off, and it did start paying off. And I think the fact that we really trusted this content marketing in general, I think that's what worked. But we really, very early from the beginning, we knew that our brand the foundation of our brand needs to be content and thought leadership. I think I wish we invested in it earlier than we actually did. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a background on what changed. We really took it seriously one day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just interested, right? Because sometimes there's like a big turning point or a change, or I think sometimes even just for people listening to this or watching this who are maybe in like a tricky spot, maybe their SaaS is like early stage and it's struggling. It's at that point that you guys were at maybe a few years ago. It just shows that if you trust the process and like actually just commit to one path, often that works out pretty well. So I think people listening will pick up some really great pieces of advice from
I think content builds up, so you can see it eventually. You're like building a mountain stone by stone, but you can't see it in the beginning. So it's just something that builds up, and you need to have faith in it that it will eventually. I'm not saying that content marketing works for every startup out there, but yeah, definitely for some, it could work out well, depending on your audience.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us so far, Ksenia. I think this has been a really interesting insight as to how you guys at Planable are growing and scaling with content, but also just how you're approaching content and content marketing and how it's helped you guys really move forward as a business. So just as we start to wrap up, I would love to find out if there's anything that maybe we haven't discussed so far with regards to like content marketing that you would really want to talk about, or any maybe real key pieces of advice that you didn't bring up. Is there anything that you think we may have missed?
No, I think we touched upon all the points that I wanted to talk about. I think just identifying that flag that we talked about, that brand flag that we talked about very early on, is super helpful. You need to know who you are as an identity and as a brand very early on, and you need to find your own niche. And that applies in brand building, but also in SEO. So you need to find those keywords and those flags for yourself as a brand very early on. I think that would be the overarching piece of advice for the conversation that we've had today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. This has been really interesting. I know that people are going to find a lot of value in this. Just as we wrap things up, is there anything that you guys want to share that you're working on at the moment? Or I know that there's, on the Plannable site, I was taking a look at the section focused around remote collaboration and how to help remote teams collaborate on content. Is that something that you guys are kind of pushing at the moment? Is that the current content project that you're focusing on?
That's kind of the direction that we've had to take during this entire coronavirus period. We were very well positioned for this, considering that we're building a collaboration product, but we realized that we needed to switch a bit, and we needed to do a bit of work around remote work as well, from a content perspective, from an SEO perspective, from a paid perspective. So that was a bit of a pivot from a communication standpoint that we've had to go through in the past couple of months, and we're probably going to keep investing in it in the next couple of quarters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for coming on today's show. I really appreciate your time. This is a great episode.
Thank you so much, Dylan. That was a great chat for me too.